With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
Hey, division game, on the road, 2-0. Can't be 3-0 unless you're 2-0. Winning football by the special teams, winning football by the offense, and guarding the victory. How about that defense? Hey, what a hell of a job. Let's celebrate with a happy play. Who could possibly have it better than us? Nobody!
That's right. Life is pretty good right now if you are a player or a fan of the LA Chargers, because on Monday night they started out the season 2-0, a perfect record. In fact, they're one of just 10 teams remaining through 2 weeks that are undefeated. Amongst them, the Bills, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Packers, the Rams, the Buccaneers and San Francisco 49ers, and how about the Arizona Cardinals and the Daniel Jones-led Indianapolis Colts. That's right, the Colts are in that select group as well. All 10 teams very much aware, no doubt, of this statistic, that in 5 seasons now since the NFL expanded the playoff format to 14 teams, if you start out the regular season with a 2-0 record, you have a 78.6% chance of making it all the way to the postseason. Of course, the Raiders went into Monday Night Football hoping they'd be in that group. They fell down to the Chargers. They have a 1-1 record. And I said on this show last week that I wasn't sold on what we saw in week 1, despite that road win at the New England Patriots. When you consider that they had 7 plays inside the Chargers' red zone, and they didn't run on any of them, pass plays on all 7 attempts, for a total of -6 yards. That sounds incredible enough, more so when you consider that they spent the 6th overall pick of this past April's draft on a running back, Ashton Genty. He doesn't even get a sniff when they go to the red zone on Monday night. And there's another statistic that's not going to make for good reading for the Raiders either. Ashton Genty has the fewest yards per touch through his first 2 games of any player that's had a minimum of 25 touches of any first-round running back since the merger. That's going way back to the 1970s. Do you know how many yards he's averaging per touch? Less than 2.5, 2.4 yards a touch of the ball. That isn't good enough. Pete Carroll had a good week 1. Week 2 wasn't so good for the new Raiders head coach, and they need to find a way to get the ball in Ashton Genty's hands and make him more productive. What was good news as a result of that performance is that the show got their first result against the line in 2 weeks of the season. A bit like the New York Jets, the New York Giants, we're not going to dress it up. It's not been a great start, but the first one is always the hardest. It's on the board, and it's time to turn the page and look ahead to Week 3 in the NFL.
Graves on Gridiron with Richard Graves.
Yes, welcome along to the show. This is Graves on Gridiron. I am your host, Richard Graves. As painful as it might be, we'll start out by recapping last week's picks. As always, 3 taken from each week's slate of games. The show's record is 1-4-1 to this point. Yes, there was a tie against the spread in week 1. But last week, 1-2 against the line. The Chargers delivered as 3-point favourites, running out 20 points to 9 winners over in Las Vegas on Monday Night Football. But Dallas, despite winning an absolute thriller over division rivals, the New York Giants, only won by 3. They needed to win by more than 5 to cover that spread. And then the Miami Dolphins, I put my faith in Mike McDaniels and his team. It proved not to be faith well placed, shall we say, as they lost at home to their division rivals, the New England Patriots. 1-2 against the line on week 1, 1-4-1 to this point. So who, like Graves on Gridiron through 2 weeks, is in trouble in the NFL? Well, I said there were 10 teams with a perfect record in the introduction. Reverse that, there are 10 teams that haven't so much as tied a game so far. They are 0-2 through the first 2 games. Some you won't be surprised by. The Jets, the Browns, the Titans, the Bears, The Dolphins are 0-2. The Giants losing a heartbreaker in Big D, 0-2. The Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints. The Houston Texans might turn a few heads, having blown a lead against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday night. And then there's last year's Super Bowl runners-up, the winners of the Super Bowl for the previous 2 years before Super Bowl 59, the Kansas City Chiefs. They also are 0-2, having lost narrowly on Sunday at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. So who should be feeling good? Who should be feeling bad? Who should be in downright panic mode right now? Well, of those teams with a perfect record, I think the Bills, the defending champion Eagles, the Packers, all should be feeling pretty good about the way they're playing ball right now at the moment. In full-on panic mode, I think the Dolphins are pretty close to that. Mike McDaniel is on a hot seat right now in South Florida. And despite being 2-0, I think if you're around the Cincinnati Bengals right now, you should be in panic mode because that team goes as their quarterback goes. And for those that didn't see it on Sunday, despite winning, Joe Burrow, their prized face of the franchise at quarterback, left the game with a turf toe injury. It turns out it's a severe turf toe ligament injury for which he's having surgery. He will miss the next 3 months, which takes you to, roughly speaking, the middle of December. So between now and then, if the Bengals are to keep alive their playoff hopes, I think realistically they're 2-0. They need to get to 8 wins by the time Joe Burrow returns to action. So somewhere along the line in what is not an easy schedule, they need to find another 6 wins. Browning came in relief, played well against the Jags on Sunday. There's a reason, though, he's the backup quarterback at the Bengals. And I think it's going to be a tall order. Their defense certainly isn't the strength of the team. It's better than it was last year, judging on the evidence of the first 2 weeks. But this is an offensive-driven league, and it's an offensive-driven team there in Cincinnati. So keep an eye out on how they go now. And the Miami Dolphins, as I say, they're in trouble. The Chiefs, I've got to be honest, I think Kansas City will be just fine. I know they're 0-2 for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' NFL professional career. I know their offense isn't everything everybody would like to be, and there are concerns. But defensively now, this has been the strength of the team for a couple of years. It still looks good. You've got Steve Spagnuolo there as the defensive coordinator in KC. I think they'll be just fine. And we'll look at this week's game as well as a get-right game for them. So plenty to talk about as we head into week 3. And we're going to start with the first of our 3 games selected. I went this well last week, and Dallas let us down on the show. I'm going to look at the Cowboys game this week as they travel up to Chicago. They're on the road against the Chicago Bears, and I'm not going for an outright winner. I'm not going for team points in this game, but I'm going for both teams to score over 20.5 points. You might listen to this and say, what? The Chicago Bears are going to get 21 points or more? Well, hear me out. Look at Dallas, first of all. This is a team that has to score points if they stand chances of winning games. Why is that? Well, just look at last weekend against the New York Giants. This defense under Mike Eberflus right now, their new defensive coordinator, it's like a sieve. They can't stop anything or anyone. They had to score 40 last week because the New York Giants, a team that could only muster 6 points, couldn't even find the end zone in week 1 against the Washington Commanders. They just bombs away. Russell Wilson at quarterback looks like the 2013 version of Russ, who was cooking and helping the Seattle Seahawks to lift their Super Bowl in Super Bowl 48. They had their way with the Cowboys defense. There was no pass rush of note to talk about. That's why Dallas have ended up signing the veteran Jadeveon Clowney as another body to help the pass rush this week. And let's be honest as well. The only reason, I'm not even going to say the defense kept Dallas in the game. They did not. But the only reason they were in the game really was because the New York Giants kept backing themselves up by committing penalties. Look, Chicago, for all their faults, and I know they shipped 50 last weekend on the road to Detroit. I know they blew a fourth quarter lead at home on the opening weekend of the season to the Minnesota Vikings. but they will score points. Caleb Williams, a mobile quarterback. He will make plays against this Dallas D, not just with his arm, but with his legs as well. DeAndre Swift at running back. I expect him to have a decent day on the ground. This isn't about winning or losing the game for this spread. It's about getting points. And this may well be another shootout, not too dissimilar to what we saw in Dallas last weekend. I think for both teams to get to the 21-point mark, regardless of the result, is a no-brainer. On one hand, you've got a Dallas secondary that's like a sieve. On the other hand, you've got a Chicago defense that Jared Goff in the Detroit Lions had their way with last weekend. Well, now here comes the Cowboys offense. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens through the air. You've got Javonte Williams running the ball well on the ground. And I have to say, through 2 weeks of the season, Dak Prescott might be playing the best ball we've seen in his NFL career. He's making big-time throws downfield. He's got receivers he trusts. He's also still just about mobile enough to scramble and make the odd play with his legs as well. I've really been impressed by what I've seen from Dak so far through 2 games. So he is going to make plays. Dallas are going to put points on the board. They can't stop anybody. The Bears have enough to score 21 points in this game. It's a no-brainer for me. Take both teams to score at least 21 points in this matchup. Okay, still to come, 2 more games. We'll take the Chiefs going to New York to face the winless Giants. It's the Rams and the Eagles as well. That's next on Graves on Gridiron.
Welcome to
Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin?
No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full up front. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have Leaf Filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/day to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/day for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. 1 discount per household.
Graves on Gridiron with Richard Graves.
Okay, welcome back to the show. This is Graves on Gridiron. I'm your host, Richard Graves. We've already looked at the Cowboys and Bears matchup. We've got 2 more games to preview heading into week 3 of this fledgling NFL season. And we're going to start in the Big Apple, New York. The Giants winless at 0-2 hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. And did anybody expect the offensive explosion we saw from this Giants team, and in particular their quarterback, Russell Wilson, in Dallas last weekend? I certainly didn't, but it was a case of rolling back the years. So the question now becomes, is this something that Brian Daboll's offense can roll out week in, week out, Or was that a blemish, an abnormality, a one-off? Russell Wilson threw for over 450 yards against Dallas last weekend. It was bombs away as he carved up the Cowboys secondary. You had, obviously, Malik Neighbors running riot, finding the end zone with some unbelievable catches. DeWandale Robinson also had a day running deep and catching balls as well. I love Cam Scatterbo, the rookie running back. He's got a physicality about him. He brings an intensity to this offense. And yet, remember, this isn't a great Dallas defense when it comes to stopping the run. He still wasn't able to break it open. So there's question marks around that offensive line, obviously, the job they're able to do. Andrew Thomas, their left tackles, missed the opening 2 games. And then you had the man that replaced him, Houston, came in and lasted literally 1 drive. And that's because he committed 4 penalties, 2 personal foul penalties that backed them up 15 yards. And this is the problem for the Giants. Even when they have a day on offense like they did last week in Dallas, they just cannot get out of their own way. They were penalized on 14 different occasions to the tune of 160 yards last weekend. That sounds pretty bad. It's a franchise worst. It could have been even worse because there was 22 flags thrown on this Giants team in total last week. 8 of them were turned down or didn't count for whatever reason in the game. So how do you clean that up? Well, here come the Kansas City Chiefs now, and everybody focuses on what's wrong with the offense. They can't put points on the board. Not so much of a problem is this Chiefs defense. It's been carrying this team for the best part of 2 years now. You've got the strength of this defense in Chris Jones on the defensive line up front. Alongside him, George Karlaftis. You've got Nick Bolton patrolling the middle, Trent McDuffie at defensive back. Wherever you look through this Steve Spagnuolo defense, this is a strong unit. And let's not forget, Steve Spagnuolo was the DC in New York when the Giants were winning their Super Bowls 10, 15 years ago now. And I put it like that because the Giants have only been to the playoffs once in the last 8 years. And they don't look like going back there this time around, judging by what we've seen so far. They only put 6 points on the board against the Commanders in week 1. The defense is supposedly the strength of this team. They've invested heavily through the draft and obviously in free agency. And yet the Cowboys were able to score 40 points last week. And you might say, well, Dallas have got weapons. The point of that is the Giants were playing largely from the unusual position for them of being ahead in the game. So this should have suited the Giants' defense. It should have played to their strengths. And whether it was because Dallas made plays or because the Giants' defense committed penalties, they could not stop the Cowboys' offense. Look, whichever way you dress it up, it doesn't look good for the New York Giants. The only thing they've got in their favor is, to this point, it doesn't look like the Chiefs' offense can muster much in the way of attack either. They went down week 1, obviously, in that game in Brazil to the LA Chargers. They could only put 17 on the board against the Eagles. They're 0-2. A win this week. It's a must-win game for Kansas City if they're to right the ship and start looking at another postseason berth. Will they pile points on the board? I don't think so, but I don't think they're going to need to either. And that's why I look at the total points line for this game. It stands at 44.5 points. Well, okay, even if the Kansas City Chiefs make it to 27-28, are you seriously telling me you see the Giants scoring 17 points on this Chiefs defense? I'm not buying that if you are. You're out there on an island. You're on your own. So I don't actually think the Chiefs will either get to or, frankly, will need to score 27 or 28 points to win this game on Sunday. And by definition, I don't see the total point mark being at 45 or higher either. So whichever way you dress it up, I think I started the show by saying I think the Chiefs will be fine. The Giants are already looking at being in the top 5 when it comes to picking in the first round of next April's draft. Under 44.5 points is the line for me. Chiefs win, but under 44.5 total points for this game. Okay, we move on to our third and final game that we're previewing ahead of week 3. It's the Los Angeles Rams traveling cross-country, going coast to coast to take on the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Two teams that have started out the season with perfect 2-0 records. Only one will remain by the time the dust has settled on week 3. It might come as no surprise that the Eagles, with home field advantage, start out this game as 3.5-point favourites. Is it the game of the week? Maybe it is. Maybe the Lions and Ravens on Monday Night Football will have a little bit to say about that. But either way, it is a star-studded matchup. The Rams, for me, have somehow just drifted under the radar. Whether it's because of the disappointing way they finished last season or not, I don't know. But Sean McVay has got this engine running smoothly right now. They lost Cooper Kupp, obviously, their veteran receiver, the MVP of the Super Bowl they won in Los Angeles several years ago. He's gone up the West Coast to play for the Seattle Seahawks. But you lose Cooper Kupp and you bring in another veteran, Devontae Adams, who had a big game last weekend in their win over the Tennessee Titans. He complements Puka Nacua, who once again showed he's just as capable of making plays on the ground as he is in the air. And then you've got Kyron Williams at running back. Fresh off receiving a new contract this offseason, he's as dangerous a threat as anybody in the National Football League at that running back position right now. And I look at who they're going against. The Philadelphia Eagles, yes, they handled Dallas in week 1. Yes, they went up to KC and beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 59 rematch last weekend. Take nothing away from that performance. Going into Arrowhead and coming away with a win against a Patrick Mahomes-led team is not to be sniffed at. But they only scored 20 points in that game. And you look at some of the stats coming out of that as well. You had Jalen Hurts limited to 101 passing yards. You had Saquon Barkley limited to 88 yards on the ground. This wasn't a convincing lights-out performance by this Eagles offense, and it should be noted that they coughed and spluttered their way to victory over the Dallas Cowboys as well. That is a red flag for me because you're going against a Rams team now with one of the best offensive minds coaching them in the game in the form of Sean McVay. At quarterback, you've got a veteran there in Matthew Stafford who's been there, done it, worn the T-shirt. And remember, these two teams met in the postseason last time around. And for me, the Rams were absolutely in that game. And then with a chance to drive and cause the upset, they couldn't get out of their own way. And that was in inclement weather with adversity and all the conditions against them. Well, this is week 3 of the NFL season. Players aren't quite as banged up as they are when it comes to the postseason. The weather in Philly certainly isn't going to be as bad as it was when they met in the postseason. And I just have a gut feeling that the Rams are playing better right now. So when you show me a line that has the Rams as 3.5-point dogs coming into this game, heck, I think the Rams have a good chance of actually winning this game outright, let alone being 3.5-point underdogs. So the question now becomes, what are we going to see from the Philadelphia Eagles defense? There are question marks. They've lost players in free agency from that Super Bowl winning defense of a season ago. Darius Slay is gone now. He's gone up to the Ravens. So you bring in Adoree Jackson, the former Giant defensive back. Is he as good as Darius Slay? I think Darius Slay in his prime, no question about it, is better than Adoree Jackson. So you've got a question mark there. And I'll go as far as to say right now, until you prove otherwise to me, I think Darius Slay last season is better than Adoree Jackson right now this season. Yes, you've got the second-year defensive back, Quinyon Mitchell, who had a sterling rookie season last time around. Does he suffer a sophomore slump? Well, he hasn't really been tested to this point, has he? But I will say this, that opening night game at home to the Cowboys, if C.D. Lamb doesn't have a case of the dropsies, Philadelphia might well have lost that game. And we all saw the performance that Dallas put on paper last week against the New York Giants. This isn't a vintage Cowboys team. So what does that tell you about the way the Eagles are shaping up right now? There are question marks. Zach Bourne was great, obviously, last season and took a real step up. He's been really impressive, patrolling the middle of the field for the Eagles this time around. Obviously, Jalen Carter, huge influence at the heart of that defensive line. So there's still plenty to like about this Eagles defense, but I do have question marks about their secondary. And again, until you prove otherwise, those question marks will remain. And I keep coming back to the fact that Sean McVay is an offensive genius. And he's working with a quarterback that's seen it all. He's been in this league now for 2 decades. He's won a Super Bowl ring. There's not much you can throw at Matthew Stafford that's going to catch him unawares. And I said right at the top of this preview, are the Rams a 2-0 team that are flying under the radar? They just might be. History tells us that teams can't go through a season undefeated unless, of course, you're the Miami Dolphins from 1972-73. We saw the New England Patriots complete the regular season in 2010-11 and go undefeated, but they weren't able to close out the Super Bowl. So history will tell us that as good as you might think you are, and this Eagles team is good, make no mistake about it, chances are you're going to drop a game. Could this be that game? It might be. If you're giving the Rams 3.5 points and that's all that matters, I think it will be. Give me the LA Rams at plus 3.5 points to manage to cover the spread. Doesn't matter whether they win or lose, they will cover at plus 3.5. Okay, let's review the 3 games selected ahead of this Week 3 slate. We start in Chicago, Illinois. Cowboys at the Bears. Neither team's really been that impressive, let's be honest, through the first 2 weeks. But I do think we'll see points put on the board here. The weather will be just fine. I don't think it'll be a massive influence so early in the season up there at Soldier Field. So take both teams to score at least 21 points in this game. Then it's on to New York. The Giants hosting the Chiefs. This is going to be a turnaround opposite of that Cowboys Bears games. I don't think we will see a ton of points here. So take the under at under 44.5 total points in the game before we finish out in the city of brotherly love. The Eagles host the Rams. The Rams are 3.5-point dogs, but I think they're flying under the radar. They're relatively healthy, and I like what we've seen through the first 2 weeks. So take the Rams to cover at plus 3.5. As I always say at this juncture, it's all about enjoying what we see put out there in front of us when it comes to the National Football League, folks. Keep that in mind. You know, if you're going to get involved financially in games, don't do so with more than you can afford to lose. It's meant to be about having just a little bit of fun and to accompany your enjoyment on a Sunday. Keep that in mind. Obviously, love to hear from you folks as well on social media. On X, it's Richard Graves 1. Equally on Instagram, at RDG Media UK. Keep in touch, enjoy the games, and most importantly of all, have fun. And until next week, it's so long, everybody.
Subscribe to Graves on Gridiron wherever you listen to podcasts. And keep up to date with the latest on Twitter. Search for Richard Graves 1. That's Richard Graves, the number 1.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.